watching it. Right, yeah, there you go. Because I'm sure it fits their curriculum. Not. This is a specially created curriculum for IB history. That's right. So if anyone's taking like history next year at CWI or anything like that, it'll be different because they set up theirs differently than the way we do. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Have attention, please. All quiet, please. Thank you. Go ahead, have your notes out. We're going to be diving into the Spanish Civil War. We're going to be going because on Wednesday of next week, we're going to finish up all our notes and then get right into the review for the test. And the test is going to be on when, Haley? Yeah, you do. Oh, you're not going to be here? Are you going to do it ahead of time? You can do it after. Yeah, some students have asked, because, like, hello, wow, you're taking a vacation before spring break or something. Anyway, I'll have the test already. So if you want to do it before the break, otherwise, just make sure that you study plenty. Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, I understand. So we'll have it set up for you when you get back. Okay. So we're going to be like chop, going into all those different things. Yeah, and again, I still haven't heard exactly whether you guys are going to be in here first period doing history, because that's what we do when we're in history class. We do history. Or if you're going to be in first period English. It'll be flip-flop either way with the other group of students. So I have no idea.
I could not handle this.
Okay, you are being recorded. And I will forward these videos. Yeah. Yes, Maya's much more careful now. She's like, oh, I'm not going to talk about other people while it's being recorded. That's good. All right, any other announcements? I guess you guys are doing a movie night? Okay, well, have fun doing what you're doing. Okay, let's go ahead and stand for the pledge. Okay. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Yeah, Aiden, I think you're out of the camera shot, pretty sure. So, yeah, but people could learn if you forget to take your hat off at the beginning of the pledge. It's okay to take it off halfway when you remember. Go ahead and be seated. Have your notes out. We're going to dive right back into the Spanish Civil War, which, as much as I've warned you, Danton, about like similarities and how like the United States should not go down the path of like a civil war kind of thing. Let's see. You're getting there. Okay. There are some circumstances that are different, thankfully, with respect to Spain and the United States. Some things leading up to the Spanish Civil War, yeah, that's what I need to do, that are not present in the United States. For example, you can write this down. Our military has no history, thankfully, of getting seriously involved in politics and looking around and going, wow, the government's really messing things up. Maybe we should just have a military coup. There are other countries that have those traditions, and Spain is one of them. And actually, even in modern times, there was an attempted military coup. After Franco had died and the king was in power, and the king was like, let's have democracy, and then the military, some of the military was looking at democracy going, wow, this isn't working out very well. And they attempted a coup, and the king said, back to the barracks, now. And that was the last military coup attempt that they had in Spain, so that's good. Yeah. Come on, chop, let's go. You got to be prepared. Hello. This is what we do in school. We come to school prepared.
Right.
All right, come on, chop. All right, here we go. One of the things that I wanted to point out, we were talking about the different sides. Yeah, because we need to do the nationalists. The Republican side. Come on. There we go. There we go. On the Republican side, there were two components that we didn't focus on as much. Quite a diversity of different groups. You've got extreme with communists and anarchists, socialists. You know, if people like socialists, that seems pretty extreme in the United States of America and so forth. But in Spain, they were, you know, sort of like the bulk of the group that was on the left wing of the political perspective. Liberals and so forth, people who want democracy, but key groups are going to be Catalans and Basques, okay? And what you need to know about Catalans and Basques is they are in Spain, but they're not really Spanish. Their languages are not Spanish. Let's go back to the map. Let's look at the Catalan first. Make sure you have this. In the northeast part of Spain, that Catalonia area, in and around the city of Barcelona, very important populous city, probably one of the more prosperous of the Spanish cities, they don't kind of like having the majority Spanish and the Spanish government telling them what to do all the time. So it's actually still an issue in Spain today. There's a bunch of people in the Catalan region that would like more autonomy. Some of them even want to be independent. Okay? Well, in this fight, they're going to see that they have a better chance to get a little bit more of their way with the elected government. It actually is it kind of reminds you of the nationalists. They like the Spanish nation. If you're in the Spanish nation, then you are Spanish, not Catalan. You got that? So, Catalan autonomy will be opposed by Franco, and then when he comes to power, forget about it. Same thing also with the Basques. Now, Idaho has an interesting connection with the Basques. Any of you guys raise your hand if you have relatives who are Basque? Know people who have relatives who are Basque. Except for? Shanti, yeah. I mean, Shanti's got plenty of relatives that are Basque, and he's actually doing his History IA on, which is something we're going to talk about today, Garanica, the bombing during the Spanish Civil War by the Germans on behalf of the nationalists of the Basque city of Garanica. The Basques don't speak Spanish either. Have you guys ever been to like any Basque cultural events in like Boise or anything like that? It's really, really cool. Yeah. I mean, because a lot of Basques came over before, actually maybe even during some of this time period. It goes back way, way back. Nevada, Idaho, a lot of Basque sheep herders and so forth have become an integral community within Idaho. And they pay very close attention to what goes on in Spain. In fact, sometimes the Idaho legislature will condemn the Spanish government for the mistreatment of the Basques. And the United States government's like, what is Idaho issuing an opinion on what's going on like over in Spain? And you're like, yeah, well, because we got people here that care about this stuff. It's amazing. In the number of years I've had this poster in my classroom and so forth, different families come in for parent-teacher conferences, back-to-school night and so forth. And if there's some Basque heritage and so forth, they see that, they're like, yep, glad you're teaching that. Okay, because it's an important part. It looks like a Christmas flag, but this is the Basque flag, and it's located in the northern part of Spain. It actually, there's some Basque area also in France. And they want more autonomy. They want a little bit more say-so about how things go. They felt like they had a better chance among the elected republic, and so that's why they lined up predominantly with the Republican cause. And they will also lose, okay? And Franco will repress Basque identity during his reign, okay? In fact, it got really bad that there was the beginnings of, and actually carrying out, some of them are like, well, let's not just protest, let's actually have a terrorist group, ETA. Yeah, no, I'm just like, that's conflicting, because if you're a Basque in the United States, you're like sympathetic to the plight of the people there, but you're like, I don't know if I'd really do that terrorist thing. That's really not the way to do things. But in any event, it's a lot better now, but anyway. All right, so that's the Republican side. Let's go ahead and line up the nationalist side. You ready? The most important component in the nationalist side is going to be the military, okay? Much of the military will go against the elected government. The military is traditional. They've been very much part of power. Even when, like, the monarchy's been around for so forth, the military's been a key part of it, okay? And, of course, the military is going to be led by you can call him a rebel, because that's what he is, but if he's a rebel that takes much of the military with him, then that's going to help that cause, the nationalist cause. Franco is going to be the guy in charge predominantly of winning the war, and he will be in charge of Spain afterwards. Although, ironically, make sure you have this guy's name in there. General Emilio Mola. He is the plan maker. He's the guy that's sort of putting it all together, and he is trying to persuade, and ultimately does persuade Franco to, let's do this thing. Let's try and overthrow the elected government. Okay? So the military. Another key component of the nationalist cause is going to be the Catholic Church. Okay? They are the dominant religious group in Spain, and they are very closely entwined with the government over hundreds of years, even going all the way back to Ferdinand and Isabella. 1492, Ferdinand and Isabella, they get married, they put their various different parts of Catalan region, and the bulk of what then would become Spain, okay? And they hire, who was the guy they hired in 1492 to sail the ocean blue? Thomas Edison, really? Wow. Light bulb went on, and wow. Whew. We got our work cut out for us, man. Yeah, but sometimes some people don't know either, like Christopher Columbus and then the Spanish Empire, and that's why people take Spanish at North Star, because it is the predominant language of most of the Americas, right? Spanish. And it's the second most popular language in the United States of America. Spanish, it's a very important language. But another thing that people they don't always aware of is that Ferdinand and Isabella, when they came together, they're like, Catholicism, Christianity, that's the way. And they instituted what was known as the Spanish Inquisition. Do you know what the Spanish Inquisition is? If you're a fan of Monty Python, you never expect the Spanish Inquisition. The Spanish Inquisition is basically like Spain for the Catholics and only the Catholics. Prior to Ferdinand and Isabella gaining control over all of what became Spain, there were plenty of Jews there. The Muslims had been in charge, and there were a lot of Muslims there. They got kicked out if they didn't convert. There will be no Protestant Reformation in Spain. There's no room for that. The point is, make sure you write this down, the church is integrally entwined over the years with the government. And the government is going to be, here's the next group, monarchy, the kings of Spain. For many, many years. I'll go back to the history of that officially. But, I mean, the church is like, what are they in charge of, like, really important things in society? Yeah, education. No, seriously, write that down. For hundreds and hundreds of years in Spain, the church, the Catholic Church, is in charge of education. If you want a Catholic education in this community, where do you go? If you want to go to, like, a Catholic high school, Bishop Kelly, exactly, okay? If you don't want a Catholic education, there are a lot of choices. Hello, yeah, there's tons of choices. Charter schools, regular public schools, private schools, and so forth. In Spain, for many, many, many years, your education choice was the Catholic Church. They ran the schools. They're not going to like what the Republicans are doing, because the elected government, there's going to be a lot of ideas that they're going to be putting into place to create, public education. You're like, but I'm in public education. How threatening can that be? I mean, does it really matter to your parents who educates the children? Does it really matter to you someday if you have children who educates them? Will you just hand them over to some stranger going, I'll teach them? And then they come back and you're like, what has one of those teachers been teaching you? Oh my gosh, where is this coming from? Anyway, the church is very interesting because, and this is a key thing, the church is ultimately going to be on the side of the winners. And some people are conflicted. If you're a poor peasant, and you're like, I'm a poor peasant, I would like some land. Maybe I should line up with these guys over here. But there are some parts of that, because a lot of poor peasants are traditionally Catholic. They're like, tradition. And so when you see images like this carried out by some of the folks on the Republican cause, mostly anarchists, communists, and so forth, who believe that Catholic Church is bad and too powerful. Oh, and they also have, it's like the Spanish Civil War version of QAnon. Sorry, you guys know what a QAnon is? Some of you guys do. And one of the classes is like, what? What's QAnon? It's an interesting, very small subgroup of people. They like, Trump. Not to say that everyone likes Trump is part of QAnon, because that's not the case. But QAnon is, I don't know, they're into conspiracy theories. So, for example, they would say, the Democrats are really motivated by rounding up children and putting them into sex slave operations. I'm like, What? Yeah. Probably the most visible person who, what? And they use pizza restaurants, yeah, there you go, to incorporate that, yeah. It's like they go to pizza, I mean, literally, there was like this pizza restaurant that was set upon in Washington, D.C. because people are like, I think that's the operations center, like, they're like, we just deliver, you know. We're not gathering children. Yeah, one of the most visible persons on January the 6th was like the QAnon guy. Did you ever see the picture of the guy that didn't have a shirt on? He had some like, you know, hairdo and thing like that. Anyway. No. But here's the deal, and I bring that up as a reference point because it's like that's just really outreaching conspiracy theories. Some of the extreme points of view on the left and the Republican side were going, yeah, that Catholic Church, they're up to no good. Those nuns, they're out to like poison children. What? The nuns aren't out to poison children? I don't think. Anyway, so they would like set upon monasteries and convents and so forth and like tear down this, that, and so forth, and then like take dead nuns out of crypts and prop them up on the side of the buildings. How's that going to go as far as winning over the hearts and minds of the predominantly Catholic population in Spain? Do you know who uses these kinds of images to shore up their support? The right. They're looking around going here, well, you know, you might get some land from these guys if they win, but you're also going to get your church destroyed. And they will bring up images of what happened to the Russian Orthodox Church when the communists took over Russia. Was it good for them? No. What is a basic tenet of Marxism and communism? Yay, religion, or, oh, religion is stupid and it's just like a drug that is blinding people to the reality. Anyway, whatever. So these are going to be component parts here. In this whole mix, you also have the fascists. Here we go. Oh, yeah, there's a fascist group. Yeah, they're not the biggest thing. So it's like in Italy, the fascists are in charge. Okay, so that's Mussolini. Okay, they're going to be in charge. In Germany, the fascists, the Nazi party, is going to be in charge. Okay? Franco's not so much a fascist, but he doesn't mind having the support of the fascists, and they're called the Falange. Okay, those are Spain's fascists. And they ultimately will support Franco, but I mean, he's more, nationalist and, Catholic supporting and so forth. Again, he's not going to mind having the support of the fascists, and they will be a happy little party when he's in power. Okay? So, that's a group. Oh, businessmen. Write those guys down. Capitalists, factory owners. What about landowners? Whose side are they going to be on? Yeah, exactly. Okay? Got that? All right, so we got the two sides lined up pretty well. And, of course, they're spread all over the country. They're spread all over the country. All right, so we got this guy in your notes, right? He's the last prime minister of Spain before the fall of the Republic, Juan Negrin. We need to have somebody identified as, yes, Juan Negrin. Okay? I mean, there's going to be multiple various different people. On the national side, oh my gosh, I almost forgot. They have support from outside countries. The Germans and the Italians, write it down. Germany and Italy will give support to the nationalists. And a lot of support. But wait a minute, Aiden, didn't I tell you last time that the League of Nations said, no, stay out of the Spanish Civil War. That's for the Spanish to deal with. All you countries don't contribute. I mean, that's what they did. Well, the Soviets didn't listen. They helped the Republicans a bit. The Germans and the Italians, write this down. They're going to help the nationalists big time. 100,000 Italian troops going into. And when Italian troops show up, they come with their military, they come with their weapons, they come with their support. They're going to make a big difference. I mean, it's like not even fair. The nationalists already have the bulk of the military, well-trained, disciplined, loyal to their disloyal generals. And then the Italian military is in there. And the Germans send military in there as well. The Condor Legion is going to be a German military unit coming over to fight in the Spanish Civil War for the nationalists. Hitler's like, okay, you're going to get some real training, guys. What? The nationalists won.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Germany will lose World War II. We're getting to that. Most people know that fact. Okay? Germany will help the nationalists win. Okay? The Germans also will try out their, again, completely in violation of the League of Nations. The Germans have built, by 1936, and they'll test it out in 1937, they have built an air force, a modern air force, which is much more modern than was available in World War I. That is a plane, yeah. As part of what the Germans call their Luftwaffe. Luft being like air, sky, Waffe being force. Luftwaffe. I know some of the students are like, that sounds funny. Luftwaffe is not funny if you are in Garanica, because the Luftwaffe has enough ability to carry a load, a payload that is going to be very costly for the people under it. Because when they drop the bombs, here we go, let's go ahead and just give you the date. When the Germans drop the bombs on the Basque community of Guernica on April 26, 1937. April 26, 1937, as part of an operation by the nationalists to crush that area in the north, they drop bombs. At that time in history, were people familiar with how to defend themselves against an attack from the air? No, because there'd never been like attacks from the air quite like that. So they're just like completely defenseless. This is what Guernica looks like afterwards. I'm actually surprised. I'm going to give you the casualty numbers, 200 to 300 civilians killed. And I would have thought it would have been more, but I think, you know, as the bombs are being dropped, people are like, maybe let's like get out of here. And of course, that ultimately helped the nationalists gain control of it. So the Germans were able to try out their bombing techniques. And trust me, when we get into World War II, which is only going to be 2 years after that, 2 years, yeah, 1939 is when World War II will get started in Europe, and the Germans will use those same aircraft to bomb cities, defense positions. It's going to be very effective. Yes?
So were they using like, you know, like flying fortresses and stuff like that? Were they using ships like that? Or were they using like some
Both. Yeah, there's going to be both. Yeah, when we get to World War II, you're like, oh my gosh, we're going to get into like some serious like military nerd stuff. Of course, yeah, because it's important. In World War II, we'll see that you can like have big aircraft fly long distances. Those are strategic bombers. They can really drop a lot of bombs and so forth. There will also be, and I think this is a little bit more like a Stuka bomber. Those are going to be more tactical. They will fly over the battlefields. They fly up real high and then they dive bomb because that helps to guide the bombs to the target of where they want to hit. And they'll like look down, so they're like, so they literally drop the bombs. They come out and the bombs go boom. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, not so much. It's some. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, and those are going to be very much used like on the battlefield. So these are the ones that are going to be tested out and be very effective. Okay. In fact, this is a good point. Yeah, after the bombs fell. Yeah. Oh, of course. Hello. What am I talking about? Pablo Picasso. Write it down. Pablo Picasso, Spanish artist, one of the great modern artists. Hitler wouldn't like him because that's modern expressionism. Are you kidding me? Hitler would go, that's degenerate, that's stupid, that's awful. Spain loved him. If you want to see this painting, go to Madrid. It's there now. It was not there during Franco's regime. When Franco won, there was no way. Picasso, write it down. He left the country. He left the country. He did this painting, which is an expression of the bombing of Guernica. You may be able to make out some of the figures. Women, children, horses, bulls, getting blown up and destroyed by the bombs, exactly. Yeah, like I say, this is like very, very powerful image, art image depicting what happened in Guernica on that day. Okay? Yeah. We already got the international brigades, right? Okay, we got these guys. Oh yeah, we'll get to that here in a sec. All right, one thing I'm gonna interrupt just very briefly to show you. Thank you, Emperor Tiger Star. Oh my gosh, this guy. I don't know what else he has on here, but he's got like, what? He's got how many subscribers? 368,000 subscribers, and he puts together these really cool videos. We've seen some. This is going to be like the war. as a map. Okay, pause right here. Okay, so when the war gets started, we will see, this is actually, it throws you off a little bit because blue will be the Republicans, red will be the Nationalists, although red is whatever. So you've got the base of support for the Nationalists initially right up here, and then the base of support here. There's the Basque area in the north. There's the Catalan region over here in the northeast. And then in and around Madrid is going to be the kind of the mainstay area for quite some time. Spanish Morocco is going to be, there's a lot of Spanish military there to keep the Moroccans at bay, and so they're going to be loyal to Franco, and they'll join the cause there. Portugal lends some support, but here are the two big ones. Italy and Germany, we talked about them. They're helping out the Republicans big time. So the war is going to get started in 1936. And we'll see that the Republicans are going to be sort of chipped away as we go through here. Okay? First target, look for this area, 1937. When we get to 1937, then you're going to have the bombing of Garanica. You'll have the Nationalists focusing on crushing this element of opposition. And going. Good question. The Republicans do not have much of an air force. As far as like developing a modern air force, that was something that the Germans had really focused on doing. There's not going to be much in the way of an effective air force for the Republicans. In fact, the Nationalists themselves don't even have much of an air force. They relied on the Germans to come in and do the damage. Okay, so the Basques are wiped out up here in the north. Next target is going to be the Catalan region here. Okay, and how are these guys defending themselves? I told you before, right? Volunteers, hey, anarchists, have some guns. You might want to break after your lunch and go up to the front lines and actually try shooting some of the enemy, the Nationalists who know how to actually fight, who are disciplined, who have effective military maneuvering. And there you go. They'll hold out, 1939 is going to be the critical time, ultimately chipping away, 39. You have the destruction and defeat in the northeast, and then Madrid is surrounded, and then, boom, the war is over. April 1939, the war's over. Oh, meanwhile, did you look at what Germany was doing? They're starting to eat Czechoslovakia, all right? They've already taken Austria, and they're taking the Sudetenland, and they're going to take all over that afterwards. All right. Was Portugal a thing? Yes, that was the one just to the west. Yeah. Let's go into the origins of the Spanish Civil War. There's going to be some long-term issues, and then we're going to get right up to the very, very beginning of the war, and then frankly, when we get to the actual war, it's going to be like, let me see, who has the best array of resources to win a war? Kind of covered that already. That would be the Nationalists. Yeah, they got most of the military, they got most of the weaponry. Yeah. So why do they go to war? Well, let's put it this way. Spain. If you go back to the time of Columbus, it's a pretty good deal. And 100 years and 200 years after that, Spain, write it down. They had a big empire. Things were going well for Spain. But then, things kind of caught up to them. By the early 1800s, Spain had lost pretty much most of its empire. Mexican independence, Peruvian independence, Colombian independence, Guatemalan independence, Argentina independence, Chilean independence. I mean, what did the Spanish still have by the end of the 1800s? What do they still have as far as their imperial possessions? 4 things that come to mind. Cuba, Puerto Rico, Philippines, Guam. Was Spain able to hold on to those possessions by the end of the 1800s? No, who took them away? The British? Were you here? The French? You are. Is that your final answer? It should be. Yeah. What was the name of the war that Spain and America fought in 1898? The American-Spanish War, says the person that identified Thomas Edison as the great sailor in 1492. No, write it down! The Spanish-American War! Write it down! Remember we covered that? The Americans called it the Great Little War, Splendid Little War. I'm like, what the heck? We whooped them. We took everything away from them. We let the Cubans have Cuba. We kept the Philippines for quite a long time. And we still have Puerto Rico and Guam. Write it down. The United States beat them. Austin, why did the United States beat the Spanish so badly? How? Because of what? What makes our military? Because you're right, our military was much more modern because of our Navy was much superior because I'm not giving up on you. Our Navy was like a steel Navy thing. Ships. We had fewer ships than the Spanish. They had wooden ships. How did we get all of that great? Starts with an I, rhymes with industrialization. We had it. They didn't. Yeah, write that down. Okay? Industrialization. We had it. I mean, this is a theme that we keep coming to at this period in history. It's okay. No, you can't. We had industrialization. We were the number one economy, industrialized economy, and so forth in the world. I mean, we're a big deal, and we were able to put it into a very powerful military and navy. I mean, we made a big difference in World War I. We will make a big difference in World War II. But meanwhile, Spain, write this down. Spain's economy was not industrialized by that time. In fact, even if you go there today, they're just starting to get caught up to like the rest of Northern Europe and so forth. It's a challenge. Most of the wealth that was in Spain, like in 1898 and so forth, was like agricultural, farm wealth. I mean, how did that help the Chinese? Lack of industrialization. They got whooped. Russia during World War I. Lack of industrialization, they got whooped. I mean, it's one of those things we keep coming back to. So what was a splendid little war, Spanish-American War, 1898, for the Spanish, write it down, it was the disaster of 1898. It was the disaster. They got whooped, and it creates a real crisis. Although, having said that, they stick with their monarchy. Write this down. The Spanish had a monarchy. Are you writing that down? The Spanish had a monarchy as their form of government all the way up until 1931, with one brief exception, because they were looking up to the north and going, hey, maybe we should try a republic. They did have a republic very briefly, 1873, 1874, okay? But that republic didn't last a lot. Traditional, conservative ideals in Spain were like, we need to have a monarchy. And the military supported that. So you got this combination of military and monarchy, okay? All right. That's going to change in 1931. Write this down. Now we're getting closer to the onset of the war. In 1931, the republic will be created. The monarchy will be removed. Okay? Yeah. What happens 2 years before 1931, so that would be 1929, an event that is global in impact and is going to have a long-standing impact. I'll give you a clue. It ended the fun Roaring '20s, and it's going to put the world into a economic turmoil. It's going to be called the Great Depression, so write that down. The world, including the United States, Germany, and other parts, are going to enter into a Great Depression, and usually when people look at it, sparked by the stock market collapse. And that doesn't necessarily cause the Great Depression, but it's usually kind of like a really clear indicator that we're entering bad economic times. And Danton, what do you suppose? We haven't talked about it yet, but what do you suppose is going to actually finally pull out from the Great Depression and restore economic strength to countries by the time they enter into the late 1930s and into the 1940s? WW2, World War II. Yeah, so the United States, when we start hiring a whole bunch of people to factories to make weapons and so forth to sell to other people fighting in World War II, and then eventually us, that's going to take us out of it. But write this down. In Spain, it creates a real economic problem, and whatever government you have, if you got bad economic problems, the people are going to look and go, we should get rid of that government. And they do. And so, a republic, a democracy is created. And the very first elections then, in 1931, is going to bring in a coalition supporting mostly the left. Write it down. The left does well in the 1931 national elections. Okay? So the left, including socialists and some of the more liberal type political parties and so forth in Spain, they're going to come into power, and they're going to look around and go, it's about time. Let's start doing some stuff the way things should be done. And of course, some of them are going, let's not go too fast, because if you go too fast, if you take all the land away all at once, you're going to raise some serious opposition. They implemented public schools. Who's going to be concerned about public schools? Cole? The Republicans set up public schools in Spain after they're coming to power, so the left wing coming to power. Who doesn't like having all the education responsibility taken away from them? Exactly. The Catholic Church is not going to be too happy about that. So here's the deal, and this is where the comparison of the United States and Spain is not perfect as far as fitting. When we have an election that doesn't turn out the way that some people like, mostly those people, they protest, they complain, and they get ready for the next election. They try to win over that group of people that's sort of in the middle, that kind of go back and forth and back and forth. But in Spain, it doesn't necessarily work that way. Write this down, 1932, so within 1 year of the left coming to power in Spain, there's a military coup attempt. The military doesn't like what's going on, so they're like, hey, let's try and overthrow the government. But it fails. It's a failed military coup. Now, you would think going into the next national elections in 1933 that the left wing would go, vote for us. We like elections. We agree that the people should rule. You would think that would work out that way, but write this down. 1933, the right wing wins the majority in the national elections. The right wing wins the majority of the national elections. They're like, well, who knew? So they're starting to undo some of the things that the left had put into place because, they got the support from the church and so forth, and they're like chaos. And so on the left wing, there's some radicals that are like, well, I'm not going to wait till the next election. In 1934, so the following year, there will be a left-wing revolution attempt. So among the left-wing coalition, some of them, perhaps anarchists, communists, and so forth, are like, let's have an overthrow of the government. That's what they do in the Soviet Union. Let's do that. I told you it was an attempt, which therefore means it succeeds or fails. It fails. And who do you suppose is going to be the popular, loyal at that time, military leader who will put down the left-wing military coup attempt? Franco. He's going to get his chops and some popular praise from the Spanish people for putting down that left-wing revolutionary attempt. That was in 1934. Next national election, 1936, the year of the Civil War. Here we go. Write this down. Austin. February 1936. The left wing is like, oh no, we're going to be pinned with being like revolutionaries and da-da-da-da-da. What should we do? Here's what they do. They organize, write it down, the Popular Front. It's a coalition. Haley, it's a coalition. Did you put your hands like that? Thank you. They organize the Popular Front. Okay. So basically, what they're doing is they're sort of looking like, okay, instead of left-wingers fighting it out politically for wins in different parts of the country, they'll look and go, okay, the communists are a little stronger here, we'll just field a communist candidate. The socialists are a little bit more popular here, we'll just field a socialist candidate. Does that make sense? So they organize and coordinate, and they win. Write it down. A narrow victory. In February 1936, the left wing wins a narrow victory. So they're coming to power again. And the right wing's like, oh my gosh, here we go again. That's when this guy, Moya, General Moya, is like, I think we're going to need to plan for an overthrow. Hey, Franco, can you join me in this one? Franco's like, well, let's watch and see how things play out. Well, here's how things play out. In the events leading right up to the Civil War, oh, by the way, the Republican government, they look at Franco and they're like, let's get him away from the mainland. Write it down. He gets shipped out to the Canary Islands. So he's in charge of There's not a lot of Spanish military in the Canary Islands, and that's where he's hanging out. Is he going to be involved in the Spanish Civil War? Yeah. Who's going to get him in just in time to lead the Spanish Civil War, the coup attempt? A British pilot. It's in the viewing, which I've assigned to you through Google Classroom. Watch it. Okay? It's a British pilot. He goes down, picks him up, drops him off in Spanish Morocco, where there's a lot of soldiers, and from there, then they go into the mainland of Spain, and then over the next 3 years, they win the war. A British guy. I mean, he's just like a contractor. He's like a pilot. He's like, oh, sure, I'll do it. Right? I mean, they interview the guy. I'll do it. That seems fine. Yeah, it's cool. Good pay. Why not? Yeah, there you go. You can fly, coup leaders all over the place. No. Here's the deal. Shh. The Republican government is suspicious of him, but they can't just fire him. I don't know. Because he hasn't done anything yet. But they're suspicious of him, so they sort of put him away. Perhaps all that does is reinforce in his mind that maybe I should get involved. Maybe I should listen to Moya. Maybe I should lead the overthrow. Well, what's going to spark it? Shh, guys. Okay, because I want to get through this as much as I can possibly now so that I don't have as much to do when we come back on Wednesday, so we can finish it all out and we still have enough time for a review for the test. Because the test is going to be big. It's not going to get less than 70 points. It's only a question of how many sample questions we're going to have in our review. Okay? So it does help to, keep the little asides and, to a very minimum. Who's going to do the thing? Who is going to, carry out some event that is going to spark the Civil War? I mean, because Moya is planning it all along. There we go. This is going to spark the Civil War. Wait a minute. Jose Castillo, a socialist politician, is going to be captured by some of the right wing. Guess which part of the coalition of the right wing is going to get Castillo and kill him? Is it going to be the church, a bunch of nuns? No. The army? No, they're too disciplined. The monarchists? No. The Falange? Yeah, write it down. Some fascists grab hold of Castillo and, Castillo, and kill him. And this occurs on July 12th, 1936. That's bad. What should the government do if somebody kills one of the leading politicians? They should go out there and find who did it. And so they do. They send out all these different police units to go find who potentially did it and bring him back. Although one of the police units, they kind of skipped the arrest and then the trial and then, whatever sentence it is. They did the arrest and they went straight to the execution. And they found a monarchist. Give me a break. Jose Calvo Sotelo was captured then on July 13th, arrested and executed by government law enforcement. That's what gets the right wing really riled up. And at that point, Franco's like, sure, I'll do it. Is there a plane coming? Yeah. There's a British guy coming to pick you up. And the Civil War, the coup attempt, which will be successful, begins only 4 days later. July 17th, 1936. The Spanish Civil War will officially begin. We've seen how it plays out. We'll see as well, and I'll recap probably this part here about atrocities, the Red Terror and the White Terror. The Red Terror rounds up supporters of the Nationalists and kills them. The White Terror carries out murders of the left side. Guess which terror is going to continue on at the end of the war?
White.
Exactly, because they're going to continue identifying and rounding up all those people. Next time we'll show you these two Civil War monuments and see if you can identify which one of them. Franco was like, sure, you can build that, to all the victims of the Red Terror. Very good. The cross. This one right here, it is too easy. This one right here, no, that's good. Some people mess it up. This one's going to be built after Franco dies to recognize and memorialize the people who were victims of the White Terror. Okay? Wipe her down, and you guys are good to go. Okay? We'll wrap up. We'll finish the Spanish Civil War, and then we got a little bit more to do before we are done and can do review.